I'm going to make a chocolate cake today. To begin with, it's going to start off. It's chocolate cake, but I hope through decoration and cutting shapes to make it look more like a roast beef, roast lamb. So we start off with a lot of cakes, creaming the butter and the sugar. Of course, the butter has to be softened. This is 125 grams of butter, 3/4 of a cup of caster sugar, and I'm going to add my 2 eggs and vanilla essence. So, no, I can't do my eggs any fancy way like the other cooks with one hand. Alright, I can try it for you now. It's not going to look as pretty as the other ones do it. They do something weird with their fingers. All of this would work much better with an electric mixer. Ooh, the videos I can make once I've got a mixer. Might make some of my curry ones. Naan bread. Got a lovely curry recipe book which I got for my partner for Christmas because he never cooks the curries I do. I mean, of course, when I say curries, I've only ever cooked one curry, and I could probably try others, but I guess I'm afraid that I won't like them because I'm a simple mind. I like my chicken curry. I don't know whether it classifies as a korma or a butter chicken, which Nick vehemently says is not Indian, but after researching I've discovered is Indian. It's not ancient Indian, but a lot of recipes from India are actually, you know, regional. They're different from each region, so even if you say you're cooking a traditional Indian curry, you'd be cooking a traditional Indian curry from North India, which Southern Indians wouldn't have even heard of. So, and I'm sure Nick's ones are even different because he's Fijian Indian. He doesn't even have any family whatsoever in India. They're all in Fiji, so. Vanilla now. I'm not going to add a teaspoon, I'm going to add 2 because it's a chocolate one. It's vanilla, it's imitation vanilla, so I always add more of that than I would of essence. Essence I would stick strictly to the recipe guidelines. Now, I've been smart and actually sifted my flours and cocoa earlier. So I'm going to add my flour, 1 1/4 cups of self-raising flour, a bit at a time, and 2/3 of a cup of cocoa powder. I'm going to alternate this, so I add this, and then I'll add milk, and of the milk I have 2/3 of a cup. So milk. About 1/4 of a cup at a time. Maybe even less, a tablespoon at a time would probably work better. And I add my flour again. And they've always said alternating. I never pay attention. I think that's just meant to be so that you make less mess by mixing too vigorously. Already got stuff all over my black clothes. And says that it makes it easier on your arm because it gets too thick too quickly. Or too thin. Oh, see? I've gone and done it. Should be wearing my apron. Yet again I'm not because it needs a wash. So it's in the wash at the moment. At the moment my washing pile is, well, it's piling up. I've washed the clothes. I've dried them. I just haven't folded them and put them away just yet. I'll get round to it. Probably after I finish cooking. Or maybe tomorrow. Or the day after that. I actually like this at its thickest point. I don't really like adding the milk, but I guess I'm too afraid not to add it. I've also added in a little bit of baking powder, even though I'm using self-raising flour. I want this to rise. I want as much volume out of this cake as I can possibly get. I'm going to put it in as small a tin as I can, because I want it to be high. You know, it's a roast. It's it's not a flat cake that I'm actually making. I'm trying to make it look like a roast. Not a very big roast, mind you, but a roast. Oh, now, you don't really need to taste test a cake batter, but I like to, because I like it a lot. Okay, I won't be such a bit. I also like to do this because I find that the chocolate cake recipes that I use don't have enough chocolate in it for me. So I have to check that it's chocolatey enough before I add cocoa. You know, I might add a bit more cocoa if it's not chocolatey. That is definitely chocolatey enough. It's quite nice. Added a little bit more milk, make it a little less thick. Oh yeah, a little smoother. And now I'm just gonna pop it in a 180-degree oven. I never time it. I always put it on for half an hour and then come and check it. Don't open the door. Maybe another half hour, because my oven, you just can't predict. You can't go by the recipe. I think cakes are an hour, sometimes they're 35 minutes, sometimes they're an hour and a half. It depends on your recipe. I'm not really doing this to show you how to make a chocolate cake. I'm doing this to kind of show you how to make a chocolate cake that looks like a roast. So the cake's kind of peripheral to all that. I'm going to put this in my mold, baking paper. Right now there's something in the oven and it's got the mold, so I need to wait for that. But just line it with baking paper. Some people grease it. If you put butter down and then baking paper, it makes the baking paper stick better, you know. Whatever floats your boat. I never trust non-stick pans, you know, non-stick cake tins, because they do still sometimes stick. I'm now going to make my gravy for my chocolate cake roast. I've got 250 grams of butter in here. I'm just melting it down and I'm putting in chocolate a few blocks at a time. I'm going to do this by taste, so pretty much, yeah, I'll tell you how many grams of chocolate I've used. I've got a 375 gram just home brand chocolate. I'm using dark chocolate, and it's really only going to be like a glaze for it, so it's probably going to be very rich. And I might add some milk to smooth it out a bit. And then it's going to be served hot, so it looks like a roast, so it's steaming like a roast. So I'm going to pour it over like gravy. I'm going to add more chocolate. I did 2 lines of it so far. This is the 3rd line. Adding. Okay, so that butter's almost fully melted. I'm going to put some cream in. I've got the chocolate cake which I baked here, and I'm going to cut it out into a kind of roast looking shape. Let's see what we can do. Whoops. Here. I'm going to make it kind of a round shape, oblong, circular. Yeah, looking a bit more like a roast now. Don't, you know, know, you don't want it to be a perfectly shaped thing, because a roast beef's never going to be in a perfect shape. It's always going to change in the oven when it cooks. It's still a bit uniform this way, so I'm going to thin it out a bit. To smooth down all the corners, you know, you want it to not have any of those corners, because you want it to look like it just naturally formed in this round shape, of course. And I'm going to get some butter and melt it and brush it on and put it in the oven for a little bit, just to cook the outside of it so that it has kind of an exterior like a roast, you know, where the skin has been cooked. You could probably dust it with a bit of actual sugar granules. That would look a bit like you'd put salt on it. It's looking pretty smooth. Can make some of it. There we go. And on to the next part. Just clean up a bit first. I've got some butter melted here now. A little basting brush, whatever you call it. And I put it on some foil, you know, on a roasting dish. Just pretty much going to make it look like a roast. I could also, rather than doing this, have put it in the oven for a little bit and then come back to it with a sugar glaze like you do with the hot cross buns. I'm actually going to put a bit of raw sugar on here. And another great idea, which I'm not doing at the moment, but I could do, is to make little roast potatoes out of scones. Just make scones in a potato shape rather than, you know, cutting them out. And then, you know, you just do the egg wash over them and kind of nice and golden looking like roast potatoes. Put this in the oven